We'll see. We still got 11 days till the first game. You know what I mean? So the competition's ongoing, seeing what guys are continuously getting better at certain concepts, whether it's the run or the pass, and what guys are kind of, I won't say tailing off, but plateauing. What guys are executing for Coach Rago and special teams. Like we're going to keep these guys sharp by competition the whole year because I believe that's going to help the team if, God willing, or God forbid, that we do get an injury.
Yeah, I mean, do you use guys based on like what their specialties are, or how do you manage that?
You'd like to. Like ultimately as a coach, you want to put your players in the best situation to be successful. You know what I mean? And if certain guys fit the run better, certain guys play the pass better, certain guys are better blitzers, situationally, 4 minute or 2 minute, certain guys, like that's part of my responsibility to have the best guys on the field. Now, unfortunately, like at linebacker, you can't always guarantee that, right? But that's part of my job, and what we're still evaluating is who's doing what. And the best part about it is this group keeps competing, right? So every day someone's getting a little bit better at something, so no one's getting comfortable. And that's a credit to the group and not necessarily myself or our staff. They compete with each other.
Yeah, what do you think about the play of Trey Brown and how he's kind of been a leader for you guys?
I mean, that's just Trey, man. He's a vocal guy. He's a passionate guy. He's really, really passionate about being here at ASU and being in this locker room, if that makes sense. And it's really, I think, bleeding into the linebacker room. It's bleeding into this defense. Like, people see his passion. He's a big communicator. He's getting people lined up, and he's very confident and he knows what he's doing. And I think you're seeing that show up here in practice by the way he's making plays, but more importantly, by the way he's leading the men around him.
Coach Ward is known for his kind of his kind of pre-snap motion, kind of what he does before the snap of the linebackers. How has that been teaching these guys, and are you guys ready with all your kind of schemes, kind of getting?
Well, we still got 11 days to go. So
yeah.
Again, as a coach, I'm always going to say, hey, we got to do something.
Yeah.
We got to do this, do that, right? But I think that's the biggest thing. You got to build a foundation with guys. Once you build a foundation of, hey, this is why we do this is why we do that, then you can really teach things same as, okay, this concept, we're going to do it like this concept, we're going to do it like that. And again, big credit to the guys because they've really helped themselves build the foundation by spending a lot of time with each other during the player run practices in the summer, you know what I mean, and really coaching each other, and I think you're seeing that this fall.
And the changeover from kind of fall camp to game prep, what does that look like for the linebackers?
It really dials in. I mean, we're not, during fall camp, we have a big menu of things that we're going to call, and you really start to whittle down. You focus on formations and tendencies and just different things you pick up, you know what I mean? Now, early on in the year, you got to be careful about that because, the other people were playing, their coaches too, and they study and they know what they did last year. So really for us, it allows us to hone in. Really helps like a young guy like Kavion Thunderbird go, okay, instead of this big mass that we were teaching every day, it's a smaller menu that you can really focus on and help them get better at.
Have there been any players that have stood out to you in the past week or so?
I mean, all those guys have done some good things at some point in the last couple of weeks. Really, the last week we've essentially had 2 scrimmages. I'd say up at Camp T, like James and crew really showed up there. I was pleased with Will. He made a couple of plays in space. I think Tate's really come along here in the last couple of weeks too. I've been pleased with the group. There's nobody I'm down on. Kavion Thunderbird is in live situations, has made a lot of plays. He's still a freshman, you know what I mean? So there's times where he's going to bust or be a little unsure on things, but I've been really pleased with those guys, and like I said, we're going to keep using every day to force those guys to compete with each other and make each other better.
Thank you, Coach.
Yep. Thank you.
And how did they handle the adversity of the noise?
Oh, it was good. It was good. I love the noise. You know what I mean? Trey being the veteran guy, he's been in Pac-12 stadiums and he heard that noise. But for some of those other guys, they have to communicate and feel that. Obviously we started off well. The last 2 we didn't finish as well as we liked, but that's the type of adversity as a coach that we can do all we want in fall camp. But when you throw on the noise like that, that adds a whole different element, and that's the type of stuff that we need. We need to make them comfortable being uncomfortable, if that makes sense.
And then I know on defense you'll take interceptions, but does Jordan have a magnet? Because
I hope
tip
so.
balls always end up in his hands.
So. We got to make sure we put 2 magnets in his pocket for the game. Hey, I don't care who makes a play. We get picks like that, we're all fired up. Absolutely.
And then with the crowd noise, I feel like linebackers are communicating almost the most out of anyone on the defense. How does that affect them, and how do you teach them to deal with that?
They have to, we talk about from day one, those guys are the quarterbacks on this defense. From the sense they have to communicate to the D-line, the nickel, the corners, and the safeties. And if something's messed up, I put it on them. If there's a communication, a check that we didn't get, it's on those guys. Even sometimes when it's not, just to make sure they understand that they take control and that they're vocal. I think sometimes with a young linebacker, that's a hardest thing to do, because to be vocal, you have to be confident, right? And to be confident, you have to absolutely know what you're doing. So continue to bring those guys along with their confidence. That way, when they are vocal, it sounds like they know what they're doing, and obviously they get everybody lined up in the right way.
And a guy like, Crew Jackson, it seems like he's had a pretty good camp. I know, like you said, mixing guys in there, but how do you feel a guy like Crew and some of the young guys have been coming along?
I mean, Crew, he had such a good summer. He put on, God, almost 20 pounds. And just, you see a confident kid, a guy that long that can move in space, can really, really wreak some havoc in passing lanes. He's a good blitzer, and he's getting better as far as fitting the run and being in his tackling fundamentals. So, and you just see, a good light in Crew's eyes, and I think he's really happy to be home, close to his folks. And and you got to remember, Crew, he's still a young player, and I look at him and go, man, and what he's going to do for our team this year, and then as he keeps getting better and better and better, as long as he keeps his head down, I think the sky's the limit for him.
And I know, when people hear it, it sounds so simple, like coaches speak always with confidence, but in a player like Crew or young players, just in making the calls, but with confidence, how is just that mental part important in growing their game? But how do you, when you see the light go on for them and the confidence comes and they're making more vocal calls, calls on the field, how is that, when you see that transformation, it finally hit, how is that, when you see it for them and they finally get it and now they have the confidence call, how does it affect their teammates?
Oh, man, it affects everybody around them. When they make a check and get it right, and the number one group that sees it is usually the backers, right? And so they'll get fired up for those guys when they get the right check, where they recognize the right pass concept and drop the correct way or fit the run correctly. Those guys recognize it. We try to, there's old coach speak, but you try to catch them doing something right. Instead of catch them doing something wrong, catch them doing something right. We try to praise the heck out of that stuff on tape and really build them up. They're not going to be perfect, you know what I mean? I'm on those guys. They won't be perfect. But the more times you can catch them doing something right, and they have the confidence, because the best part about our defense, even if they're wrong, as long as they get everybody wrong together, we're right. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. If we're all on the same page, right? You might go, well, if you're wrong, you're wrong. Not if we're all wrong together. Then we got a chance to be right, if that makes sense. Right. And so it's getting those guys to have the confidence that when they make those checks and they do those things, that they command everybody else and they bring everybody else along with them.
And then, to the other side of that too, as a position coach, but even, coach versus defensive coordinator, you're not nervous, obviously, if you have to put those guys in a certain situation to put 100%. Them in.
And I think that's the job of coaches. You're trying to create as much depth as possible because we don't have a crystal ball. Injuries are going to happen, things are going to happen, and we've got to make sure, I've always looked at it as a position coach, it's my job to have as many guys ready. That way, if a guy goes down, we're not going, hey, we don't have another Mike, we don't have another Will. Does that make sense? My job to create as much depth as we can. That way, when something goes down, maybe we have to change the way Coach Ward changed the way he calls it, but at least we can keep moving forward as a defense that we have that type of depth.
Is that part of the reason why you guys are rotating guys in, kind of constantly in and out?
Yeah.
Making sure everybody's got comfortability with everybody else?
Exactly right. And again, there's certain, that's Coach Ward does such a great job, and our staff and the people we have in our staff, we all communicate about which guys are strengths. So there's times I'm rotating guys in because I want to put them in uncomfortable spots, maybe things they're not as good at, to try to build that confidence, try to get them more repetition. And so, and I try to keep the guys on their toes. Sometimes there's reps out here today, I left them in for 4 or 5 reps, and there's times they're out in 2. You know what I mean? I want those guys to stay on their toes because that's a football game. There's highs and lows, ups and downs, and the best backers I've been around, and really the best ball players, those guys, they stay on a plateau, they stay consistent the whole time.